Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about how I'm naive and optimistic. This may seem like a weird thing to say, and some of you are going, oh yeah, I can tell. I've watched this channel, I can tell. Others of you are going, what? And let me just talk to you about, I'm telling you this because I want you to know this so this can be part of the lens through which you view my own channel. I've always been like this. I have been I've stayed this way despite some of the negative stuff that's happened. And I've also stayed this way despite of a lot of good things happening too. I, I've been told this by many people. Some meant it kindly. Someone pull me aside and go, I think you're really being naive about this. You need to be worried about these folks. Others people have not been meant it kindly. They're like, man, you're so naive. But they both said it. Both groups say it as if I didn't already know that. I know that. This is something that I'm a firm believer that people are a certain way. There's a certain personality or brain set that you have. And at a certain part in your development, most people are in their 20s, some people in their 30s, some people in their teens. This just gets set in place, and that's how you are. I know people who are happy and peppy. I know people who are always down. I know a lot of people, they're just neutral. They're just balanced. They're like, oh, here's this thing. That's not good. Let's continue. Now, events may happen that change them. Something may bring that peppy person down for a few weeks. Something may actually make that person who's always down smile. I've seen it happen. Crack their face, but it worked. And then I've seen those balanced people occasionally go, or But within a week or two, they're back to their old selves. So I wanted to talk about this because you can watch this video and then maybe think about some of my other videos in light of the fact that I'm probably continuing to be a little bit naive and a little bit optimistic. Now, the optimistic part should be easy to see. If you've ever looked at my games and seen the feature lists that are on them, knew how long they took to make and how many people made them, you would probably go, wow, you were way overly optimistic to think that this could possibly be a good game with this few number of people and this many features. So I get it. I just always think, oh yeah, we're figuring this out. We're knock it out. Sometimes we did. Sometimes we didn't. The naivete part is a little different. I've had other people tell me frequently how naive I am. And what's interesting is that things keep happening. People keep doing things that should burn that out of me. And not just employees, coworkers. Within weeks, I'm right back to being as equally believing and naive as I always was. And what made me think about even doing this video is I saw someone in a comment, I'm not going to call them out, but I was talking about how I was a little upset that people lie in interviews. And I've had people lie to me in interviews, and then I've even had that cause problems for me because I got yelled at later by a boss who said, I can't believe this person lied in the interview and you didn't catch it. And my only response to that is, I've never lied in an interview. I've never lied to applicants to try to get them to come to a company. And I've never lied to an employer, a potential employer, to try to get a job. And it is like alien to my way of thinking to think that someone would lie in an interview and feel completely justified in doing it. And that's the impression I was getting from some of the commenters on this channel, that, hey, everybody lies in interviews. It's perfectly fine. I do it all the time. That blew my brain. I don't think it's okay. I don't think everybody does it. And I don't think it's fine to do all the time. Despite that, I have a track record of believing up, sideways, and down the chain whatever anybody tells me. I have had employers tell me that they don't have any money for raises this year, forgetting that I had access, due to my position, to some of our financial records and going, oh, we did, you just didn't want to give them. I have been promised bonuses that never materialized. I've been promised team organization that has never been come through. I talked about royalties and how they don't really exist. Part of the reason you don't hear about that is most people aren't allowed to talk about their contracts. So let me tell you what happened on Troika's 3 games. I won't tell you which one was which, but I don't think this violates any NDAs, and they're really old, and a lot of them are with companies that don't exist. But, so we had 3 games at Troika. One, we had a contract for a percentage of the gross. This is extraordinarily rare. We didn't know it at the time, but we never had this before, and we'd never get it again. But what that meant was, every time the game sold, we got a little percentage of that, of the gross. Well, that company sent us 2 checks and then stopped. And when I called them to ask, they said, oh, well, we're starting to get returns. And I'm like, but that we get a percentage of gross. I'm like, well, we can't count this as a sale if the person bought it and then returned it. Then they started adding in COGS, cost of goods, packaging, the tchotchkes that went in, like the cloth map and all that. And I'm like, no, that's part of net. They're like, no, it's part of gross. They just kept saying, that's gross, it's gross, it's part of gross. And they never sent us another check again. One company that we made a game with, they sent us a few statements and then they just stopped. And I would ask for statements and they're like, don't worry about it, you haven't come close to hitting the royalty point. And I'm like, I know, but I would like to see a statement to file that away. Then they just stopped returning my calls. And just so you know, that was back in Troika, which existed from 98 to 2005. As recently as 2018, I asked that company about it. And they said they hadn't compiled them yet. They were behind. And I'm like, I'm 99% sure that as a public company, you have to have done those. But that's what they said. The third one never sent us anything as far as I know. I don't recall ever seeing a statement from them, a financial statement from them. Now, you might have thought, well, why don't you just go after them? Good luck. You can't really sue a publisher. First of all, it costs a lot of money. Second, the way accounting is done, it may look like you didn't make money. This has happened in the movie industry a lot. It happened in that famous case with the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where they did a lot of accounting juggling and made it look like that movie didn't make any money. And in her case, she won, but in a lot of cases, they lose. Also, once you do that, that publisher will never work with you again. A lot of others won't either, because you're trouble. Lately, with digital sales, I think we may have recouped on all 3 of Troika's games. Because I know a lot of people seem to be playing Vampire, and a lot of people are still buying Arcanum and Temple digitally from places like GOG, good old games. And especially on the one that's gross, I definitely think we're owed money. It's just good luck on recouping that. I could spend tens of thousands of dollars just to learn that, no, they don't owe me any money. One statement you hear from employers a lot is, don't worry, we'll take care of you. Well, unless you have a contract for that, they probably won't. And as I've just pointed out, sometimes if you do have a contract for it, they probably won't. But still, I go back to this naive. The next publisher is going to be great. And just so you know, and to be fair and balanced, I've seen this from employees. I've talked about this in other videos. I've been told, hey, the engine doesn't support this feature. And it did. Sometimes I was the one who found out it supported that feature. Sometimes it was we discovered too late. Oh, yeah, it supported that feature. And we totally could have had it in the game. I've been told by a lot of employees, oh, don't worry, I'm going to stay late and do this work. And then I buy them dinner. And then they leave right after dinner. I've been told, oh, I love this genre. I'm really good at it. I'm going to be super good at this game. And then I found out they've never, ever, ever played a game of that genre. And you realize it really quickly when they start saying and doing things. You're like, I've never seen a game in this genre do that. Oh, yeah. Well, and they can't support what they're saying. Not that I don't like new ideas, but if you tell me, oh, yeah, I played a lot of RPGs that do this, and then you can't name one. One thing that's happened to me frequently is someone who say, look, I'm going to finish this milestone or I'm going to finish this project before I leave. They've submitted like, hey, I'm going to go look for a job elsewhere. And they have reasons, they're moving, a spouse is moving, they have a sick relative, or they just want to work at a different genre. But they usually say, don't worry, I'll finish up this milestone or I'll finish up this project. That's happened frequently. And every single time I believe them. And not only has this happened to me frequently, I've had the same person do this to me twice. And I believe them the second time because I'm like, there's no way they do this again. And they did. And guess what? Went right back to believing other people afterwards. And this, by the way, this goes both ways in terms of me being naive and optimistic, and people telling me, oh, this is bad to you or whatever. I've been told multiple times at work to be quieter about things. Stop talking about things. Don't talk with other people about these things. When I was at Obsidian during Outer Worlds, and I was telling people, yeah, when this is done, I'm planning to retire. I'm going to go retire. Several people came up to me and said, you really need to stop talking about that. Some of them meant you really don't want to tell people you're retiring because it makes it sound like you're not really caring about what we're doing here. And other people were like, you need to stop talking about retiring because it makes people feel weird, makes people feel bad because maybe they're never going to get to retire. And I'm like, I want people to know that starting on the next project, they're going to have to step up because I'm not going to be here to do these things. But I stopped talking about it. I was also told that I repeated myself frequently between the team and admin meetings when I gave my weekly summaries. We had weekly meetings in both, and I would summarize what happened. Someone said, hey, I noticed you're repeating yourselves in those two projects. And I was like, of course I am. They're two different audiences. So, you may have been at both, but most people aren't. And his point was, well, you're telling the team some things I think you should only tell admin. But also you're telling the admin some things they don't need to hear. And I was like, can you be specific? And very general at that point. And it was just a weird thing about, hey, if you think you should tell these two groups of people the same thing about the state of your project, you're being very naive. Never quite figured out what that was. But it came up several times. If you still don't believe that I'm naive and optimistic, look at this channel and its comments. Most of them, 95% plus, are way, way positive. But that still leaves that 5% or so of people just constantly digging at things. And people telling me that I'm way too optimistic about the state of the industry, about where things are going, and that I'm very naive. Some of it is just, I don't get why this isn't sticking. Like, no matter how many times I credit other people I've worked with, and how many times I pointed out my own mistakes and things I'm bad at, I still see people make comments about how I blame everybody for everything. I'm always blaming other people. No matter how much detail I go into, really like excruciating detail, like the video I did on loot tables, I talked about how to organize them, populate them, use them, code them. People still wanted more. And I was like, what more do you want? Do you want me to actually post code? And I think some of them do. And I'm just like, they literally want me to do what will be their job in game dev. This is what you're supposed to be doing yourself. And yet, I still keep making these videos. I still keep hoping that some people are going to hear what I'm saying and get what I'm saying. And you know what? Some of you do. And that's why I keep doing it. That is the optimistic part of me. I'm going to keep doing it because I think a lot of you are reaching the right conclusions. That, the game industry has a lot of pros and cons. They're all, I'm showing them all here. I'm trying to tell the right stories, and I hope you're hearing it. And I wanted to wrap this up with what a friend and colleague that I worked with for over 2 decades used to tell me. He said, Tim, you like tilting at windmills. And he goes, that is both your biggest strength and your biggest weakness. Don't stop. So here I am, tilting at windmills. Hope you like it.